Good morning, everybody. Now, a week is a long time in politics. 2 weeks is even longer. And since the beginning of the Israel-Palestine conflict, or the latest round of that conflict, which has actually been going on for 75 years, an unexpected consequence of that is now manifesting itself in the United Kingdom within the Labour Party. Now, the Labour Party, with its current leader, Keir Starmer, is expected to win the next general election in the UK, which is likely to take place in autumn 2024. That's what we're being told at the moment. Now, obviously, a lot can happen within the next year, but what's happening at the moment is very, very interesting, and it could be very, very significant. And it stems from the fact that in an LBC interview on the 11th of October, Keir Starmer was asked whether he thought the actions of Israel after the terrorist attack on the 7th of October, obviously a terrible terrorist attack by Hamas, where they killed 1,200 Israelis, completely innocent Israelis. But he was asked whether the actions of Israel were appropriate, and he seemed to say, yes, Israel has a right to defend itself, and implying that it could do whatever it wanted to do, including it was taken from that he supported Israel cutting off water, electricity, and food to Gaza, which essentially would be a collective punishment of 2.2 million Palestinians in Gaza. Now, I don't agree with that idea of collective punishment myself. And this is very interesting because actually I don't normally agree with hard left Muslim Labour MPs, but they were outraged over this, and it seems now 23 councillors, that was a couple of days ago, I think the number's increased since then, 23 Labour councillors have resigned from the Labour Party in protest at his stance on Israel's reaction to the terrorist attacks on the 7th of October. And a number of MPs are absolutely raging and fuming under the surface and are going to have a meeting with him today. I'm sure that's going to be a very, very fiery meeting because, of course, they will 100% support the Palestinian cause against Israel, whereas Keir Starmer in that interview seemed to support the Israelis over and above the Palestinians rather than being even-handed. That's how it was just perceived by these Muslim MPs and the Muslim caucus within the Labour Party, which is very big, actually. I mean, I would estimate that about a third of the Labour Party are Muslims. Obviously, then you've got traditional working class people, and you've obviously got the politically correct lovies that have come out of university that have been indoctrinated with critical race theory and critical gender theory and all of this cultural Marxist nonsense. So Labour is actually a coalition of three different groups which sit together quite uneasily when these tensions come up. So it's going to be very interesting to see what happens here. Now, apparently, the Muslims actually, now demographically, there's so many Muslims have migrated to the UK over the last 25 years since Tony Blair opened the door to mass rapid migration, and then that's been increased by every single prime minister since, including the fake Conservative prime ministers, May, and Cameron, and then May, and then Johnson. Liz Truss was there for a few days, and now Rishi Sunak as well. Mass migration has been increased. So now, out of 650 constituencies in the UK, it's estimated that in at least 30 constituencies, Muslims are an absolute majority of the population in those constituencies. And they will be perhaps a plurality in many, many more. So, that in those 30 constituencies, their vote, if they all change en masse, Labour will lose some seats. So they're going to be quite desperate Keir Starmer is going to be very desperate to keep the Muslims on board with the Labour Party and not wanting them to go off and form their own party like the Muslims have already done in Belgium. There's a Muslim party in Belgium which I think has actually now got representation in the parliament. I might be wrong on that, but certainly they've got a very large percentage, relative to what you would expect. There's a very large minority, but a significant minority to be able to make a party that can win seats in a proportional representation situation. So tensions here in the Labour Party are really bubbling under the surface, and they could explode over the next few days, all because of something that's happening in this small area of the world in the Middle East, Israel, Palestine, which, as I said in the previous video, is only geographically the size of Wales. But people are very, very emotionally attached to one side or the other in this conflict, which I do understand if you are an Arab or if you are a Jew, perhaps even if you are a Muslim in general. If you are in the Ummah, you consider Palestinians as being part of your brethren, and then you would support them. Obviously there are many Palestinian Christians as well, but less than 10% of the population. They're mostly Muslim, but there is a significant minority of Palestinian Christians there, mostly in the West Bank, but 1,000 or so living in Gaza. And the third oldest church in the world is in Gaza, and was recently, one of the buildings in its complex was bombed by Israel. So, it's not just Muslims in Gaza who are suffering from the bombardment, the aerial bombardment of Gaza, which has now killed 5,000 people approximately, including 2,500 children. So many more than Hamas killed. It's just, one thing and an escalation. But, the point is that, there are Christians suffering there as well as Muslims, even though the majority of Gaza will be Muslims. But, coming back to the Labour Party, this is causing all kinds of friction and tension, and it's going to be very interesting over the next few weeks to see if the Labour Party actually does break apart. And the best laid plans of Keir Starmer, obviously backed by his globalists who are all looking for him to win. They're trying to shoo him in as the next Prime Minister to advance the next stage of the globalist agenda. Towards things that we're not talking about at the moment because everyone's focused on Israel-Palestine, but obviously the next phase of the globalist agenda is to advance the cashless society, to bring in digital identity, digital currency, more 15-minute cities, more surveillance, maybe another lockdown with another pandemic, and another lockdown, if that happens, will destroy more small and medium-sized businesses and move market share to the large global corporations. So everyone will, people who lose their job in the small and medium enterprise sector will then have to get, a basic job, a basic wage job doing deliveries for a large corporation or so on. That's what the globalists want to do, atomize everyone, control everyone. And Keir Starmer is poised to bring in the next phase of Agenda 2030 and the World Economic Forum's You Will Own Nothing and Be Happy plan, where we won't be happy because we won't own anything. But there you go. So, going to be interesting, back to the point of the video, it's going to be interesting to see if, with so many Muslims in the country, there's 5 million Muslims at least living in the UK. So, think about it, there's more Muslims in the UK now than there are Welsh and Northern Irish people put together. That's quite an astounding thing. That's quite an astounding change that's happened in the demographics of the country due to rapid mass immigration. They're mostly all gone to support the Labour Party because they have power by getting into the political process and being part of the Labour Party, taking over local Labour constituency organisations, getting themselves in as councillors, getting in as the candidate to be an MP, and then there are many, many Muslim MPs in Parliament. If they all leave, that's going to be very interesting to see what effect that will have on UK politics. So this is something to watch with great interest.